He looked at me and laughed. "You were expecting him?" That was the exact moment my world folded in on itself. Not metaphorically, literally. The cafe's lid-clipped chatter swallowed my reply. My phone was still in my hand with the selfie he'd sent at 10:13 that morning. A 30-something guy in an Armani jacket with a clean jawline. And here, sitting across from me, was a man who looked like he'd been a regular at that cafe in 1987. 58, maybe 60, 65 by the time I got my bearings. 30 years older than the profile photos. 30 years older than the person I thought had been in my life for 2 years. "You're way too gullible," he said, the words wrapped in a sneer. "You're too stupid to even see what's coming." I remember thinking, no one can be this calm. No one can be this cruel and still smile. But then, I had no idea what I was about to discover. 2 years had been built on filtered photographs, curated captions, late-night voice notes he said were his, and promises that felt like a lifeline. 2 years of video calls that were always bad connection, of face-swapped images, excuses for never meeting. 2 years of earning trust. 2 years of sending money for emergencies that never happened. 2 years of lies. But then, this laugh in a Bellevue cafe, with a ring-quality photo of the real him sent to me by a stranger, cracked everything open. Have you ever believed someone so completely that their betrayal didn't just hurt your heart? It rewired how you see the world. What would you have done if the person you thought loved you turned out to be a stranger in an old man's face? If you're thinking, why didn't you see the signs? I get it. I ask myself that every night. But the signs were there, and I ignored them. I'll admit that up front. We all bring our own blind spots to relationships. Mine was loneliness after a messy breakup, a job that left me exhausted, and a desire for someone who got me online. He filled the space like a warm blanket. It started with a message on a mutual friend's Instagram story. "Hey, saw you like indie films too. What's your take on low-budget noir?" The account, Mark Harris Official, had a curated feed, Armani suit shots, a Tesla in the background, an Aspen cabin photo, quotes about dreams. He DM'd me, I replied. Within days, we were switching to texts. Within weeks, we were calling late into the night. He said his name was Mark. He said he was 37. He sent the kind of photos that make you inhale, model lit, sunlight hitting an expensive watch. He told me stories about his small stake in a $12 million house in Seattle, a prenup that just made sense, and a laugh that matched the ones I'd heard on those voice notes. "By the way," he texted one night, "I'm going to take you for everything you've got. That's the joke, babe." I laughed and sent a crying laugh emoji. He didn't explain. Later, when we argued about money, he got sharp. "If you think you can keep taking advantage of me, you are dreaming," he'd say. "You're not that clever." For 2 years, I was living inside a narrative he fed me. The messages stacked up like receipts. Sweet good mornings, panic about a stolen credit card, images of hospital rooms with blurred faces, receipts for wire transfers. I sent what I could. $500 here, $2,000 there, never because he asked for lavish sums, but because emergencies looked convincing. He seemed like someone who'd been burned by life, who needed help. "I don't want to take from you," he once said. "I just can't go back to those days." He had a way of making me the hero, but you won't believe what I found next. One night, frustrated by the bad connection video calls and the way he always avoided FaceTime, I reverse image searched a photo he'd sent. The results blinked like a neon sign. The same face linked to a modeling portfolio in Australia and a dozen stock photo sites. I printed them out, showed them to my friend Tara over beers, and she said, "This is catfishing. This is textbook." She handed me her laptop. There were forums, Reddit threads, the exact same picture used in a dating profile 5 years earlier. I confronted him over texts. "Explain this," I wrote, attaching screenshots. He replied, "Crazy, right? Some idiot stole my photo." He claimed his account had been compromised and that the photos were of a younger cousin. But then he sent a voice note, just 3 words, and the timbre matched the late-night calls I'd fallen asleep to. I played it back obsessively. "I'm handling it," he said. He sounded like Mark again. I wanted to believe him. I did. I had no idea what I was about to discover. So I hired a private investigator. Big mistake? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. His name was Luis. He had a graying ponytail, a 20-year record of finding the things no one else could, and a way of lighting a cigarette that suggested patience. "You tell me what you want exposed," he said, "and I'll dig." He charged $150 an hour, which felt obscene. But when the investigator opened his laptop and said, "There are 47 deleted messages on this iCloud backup that your Mark tried to scrub," I felt something like vindication. Then horror. 47 deleted messages? I asked. Exactly 47, Luis said. Some of them are, well, they're not Mark. They're orchestrating. You won't believe what I found next. Will sound redundant, but trust me, reading those messages made my stomach go cold. Between the emergency pleas and sweet nothings were logistics, account numbers, instructions to a third party, mentions of a shell company in Bellevue that handles transfers, and a line that kept recurring. "He'll never figure it out. He's completely clueless." He said it out loud in one message. "He'll never figure it out. He's completely clueless." Then another, "We're in it for months, 2 years and counting. Keep playing the part." They'd planned this. When I asked Luis if the messages included any boasting, any arrogance, I wasn't prepared for how precise. The villainy would be. One deleted text read, "By Christmas, I'll be sipping champagne in Tuscany with your money." Another, blunt and casual, said, "I'm going to take you for everything you've got." It was a metaphor. It was a plan. When I confronted him via phone call, he laughed. "You're piecing together a conspiracy from text bubbles," he said. "You're paranoid." "Then explain the bank wires," I said. "Explain the $4,200 that went to Harris Holdings last month." He was silent. Then he said, "You expect honesty in a relationship? Cute." At that point, anger landed like a physical blow. It felt like theft of my time, my trust, my money. I've been accused of being dramatic. I am. But this was different. This was organized fraud dressed as intimacy. I took the evidence to Margaret Chen. She's not fictional. Margaret's office is 3 floors up in a modest brick building near Seattle's Pike Place. She's practiced family and fraud law for 30 years and has a reputation for quietly obliterating the overconfident. Her first look at the packet, screenshots, 47 deleted messages, bank transfers, reverse image results, made her put down her coffee. "This is sophisticated," she said. "This is catfishing on a scale I haven't seen in private practice. We can file a civil suit for fraud and seek criminal referral. But be prepared. Proving identity is tricky. He can claim impersonation, stolen photos. We need to tie him to the transfers." "Can we tie him?" I asked. Margaret tapped on the laptop, told up GPS metadata from a picture he'd supposedly taken in downtown Seattle. The pixel data landed on a location in Bellevue. She smiled the first time I saw it. "We have a breadcrumb," she said. "Now we follow it." Follow it we did. GPS logs from a rental Tesla. IP addresses from his social accounts they looped through servers in the same Washington suburb, and a Ring doorbell capture from a logistics warehouse in Bellevue showing a man fitting the face I met in the cafe. "We need in person," Margaret said. "If he refuses to meet, we get a subpoena. If he shows up, we have everything." Plan mode. Assemble evidence. Get the meeting recorded. Get the man on video. Trap him in his own contradictions. It felt like chess. But chess has setbacks. We had 3 moments where it looked like everything would implode. Setback 1. The bank flagged my earlier transfers as gifts, not fraudulent withdrawals, and told me their hands were tied. Margaret said, "Banks are annoyingly conservative. We will petition the court, but it takes time." Setback 2. The first time we tried to serve a subpoena to the shell company, a receptionist told Luis they had no record of Mark Harris. The trail turned cold. I remember thinking, maybe I was the only fool here. Setback 3. When I tried to coordinate the in-person meeting, the The person on the other end of the arrangement sent a message saying he wouldn't be available. Then all his social activity disappeared for a week. I had doubts. Maybe he'd run. Maybe I'd never see him in a cafe laughing at me. But then, cue that dramatic pause, something changed. A courier dropped off a paper envelope at my door with an anonymous note. Tell him I'm free Wednesday. Old hat. Same cafe. It came with a ring-quality still of the man. Time-stamped it. It stank of a setup. Margaret grinned like a cat. Either he wants to play hero or he's sloppy. Either way, we make him accountable. We set the trap. A witness in the cafe. Luis with a camera slung under a jacket, my phone in my hand, and a legal team ready to subpoena the guy if he fled. I wore my ordinary clothes, no dramatics. I remember my hands shaking as I typed, "I'll be there at 2, and hit send. He showed up a little after 2, wearing a coat that smelled faintly of too much cologne. He sat like a man who had practiced how to sit. He smiled as if this were a first date. The moment he walked in, I felt 1,000 small betrayals flash in my head, like a slideshow of all his convenient emergencies. "You're not who you say you are," I said the second he sat down. The cafe quieted. Someone else's coffee sighed. He looked amused. "Wow, is this a game? Are you doing a prank?" "No," I said. "I'm the person you scammed. 2 years, $12,400 transferred directly to help you get back on your feet. 47 deleted messages on your iCloud backups. Reverse image search results showing your photos were taken from a stock portfolio." He laughed. "You sound like a Fed. I told you I had an account compromise. People are so dramatic." Luis circled like a wolf. He stood up. "Sir, your name. For the record, you're under no obligation, but it helps." The man leaned back. "Mark Harris," he said, a practiced tone. Then, without warning, he dropped another line I won't forget. "He'll never figure it out. He's completely clueless." The cafe's collective breath froze. He meant me. He thought it was a joke. He said it with the assurance of someone who'd pulled this trick before. He thought he was untouchable. "You're not untouchable," Margaret said from the doorway, where she'd stationed herself. "We have your financial trail and your communications. You're under investigation for fraud." He scoffed. "You're bluffing." That was the arrogance I needed. "I'm not bluffing," I said. "You're a 65-year-old man pretending to be a 35-year-old woman named Mark on the internet. I have the screenshots if you don't believe me." I did have the screenshots. I had the bank receipts and the metadata. I had the ring footage. I had 47 deleted messages. I had friends who had saved voice notes and the IP logs that placed his online activity in the same suburb where the cafe's parking lot cameras showed his car. What I didn't have was an immediate guarantee that the judge would care. We filed. Margaret filed both a civil suit and pushed for criminal investigation. The prosecutor assigned to the case, a woman named Delaney, called my first meeting a cluster of textbook catfishing. With the added spice of financial exploitation. "If it smells like fraud and walks like fraud," Delaney told me, "we'll charge it." The courtroom was colder than I expected. Legal furniture always has a way of making the human element feel small. But the words we'd collected became artillery. The defense counsel for Mark Harris, a man with a perfectly pressed Armani suit, irony not lost on me, opened his mouth at the first hearing and said the kind of thing that made a room feel like it tilted. "Your Honor," he said, "my client has been misidentified. These charges are based on screenshots and hearsay. The state is reaching." I watched him, thinking of the cafe laugh. I wanted to stand up and point at the man, to say, "He said, I'm going to take you for everything you've got. He said, he'll never figure it out. He said it to me. But this is law, not theater." Margaret quieted me with a look. Then, first major reveal in the courtroom. Luis stepped up with the ring footage. The screen lit, and the man who'd claimed to be Mark in his 20s walked into a suburban storage unit behind a courier's warehouse. He took a package, signed a manifest, and used a name that matched the shell company we'd traced. That was small, but it put him on the map. Next, Delaney introduced the financial chain. Wire transfers routed through a small LLC, then to accounts with a different name. The numbers were specific: $12,400 that I could account for, plus smaller transfers amounting to $3,200 aggregated across other victims we'd identified. The prosecutor quoted a statistic that made the courtroom murmur. Online romance scams cost Americans over $847 million last year alone. A number that large made my particular loss feel like one finger pointing to an epidemic. The defense tried to dismantle the chain by claiming stolen identities and third-party laundering, but Margaret had preserved the 47 deleted messages with timestamps, messages in which the scammer coordinated with another individual about how to spin this if he wakes up. Those messages matched the bank activity and the courier logs. It was like building a jigsaw where each piece cut the defense's room for doubt. At one point, the man who had sat in the Bellevue cafe tried a line that felt cobbled from arrogance and desperation. "You're too stupid to see the bigger picture. You think I've been operating alone? Cute." He tried to laugh it off. He said, "By Christmas, I'll be sipping champagne in Tuscany with your money," as if the court were a stage and audiences should applaud his bravado. But then, the judge, a woman with a voice like a bell, looked at the ledger and quoted a number that made the man's face go white. "According to these disclosures," the judge said, "this is not a man with the means he portrays. Subject, your net worth declared as part of this matter is 0. I remember the silence after that. It was not vindictive. It felt like the universe making the arithmetic of truth public. The arrogance evaporated. The man who'd laughed in Bellevue looked for the first time human. We didn't get everything back. Money gone in digital channels is hard to recover. But we won something more important: accountability. The criminal charges were filed: wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The civil suit allowed me to freeze a tiny slice of assets and force disclosures that led to the names of co-conspirators. It also forced one strange consequence. This man, the architect of the deceit, had a family who'd been kept in the dark. They came to court. Their faces were a different kind of betrayal. They pleaded ignorance, and their confusion became part of the story. There were setbacks in court too. Evidence got delayed. A witness we thought would flip didn't. The defense hammered on chain of custody and metadata plausibility. 3 times I felt the case slipping like a soap bar from my hands. Each time, Margaret and Delaney found a handle and pulled it back. In the end, the jury didn't need to be convinced with theatricality. The 47 deleted messages, the courier logs, the IP addresses, the bank wires, the ring footage, stacked together, made the narrative sticky. The man was convicted on multiple counts, sentenced less than what some would wish, but enough to matter. He got a prison term, restitution orders, and a criminal record that will follow him. The shell company was dissolved, bank accounts frozen, and 2 additional suspects were indicted after their names came up in the subpoenas. When the gavel fell, Margaret leaned over and whispered, "Justice is messy, but it's justice." But justice didn't undo the nights I spent replaying the voice notes. It didn't bring back the naive trust I gave. What it did do was create consequences so real that the man who'd thought he could laugh his way through other people's lives had to answer for it. He lost his freedom, his ability to continue the con, and most importantly, he lost anonymity. A few months later, I ran into him, well, his mother, at a small farmer's market in Seattle. She didn't recognize me at first, then she did, and the look on her face was something I won't forget. There was humility in it. A horror that maybe she had failed to see the signs too. She hugged me awkwardly and said, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I wasn't cruel. I told her to take care. People told me I was vindictive. Others called my story cathartic. Some said I should have let it go. Tell me, was I wrong to bring this into the light? What would you have done if you got a single anonymous envelope and decided to chase ghosts? I didn't recover every dollar. I didn't regain all the time he stole, but I did build a record, documents the state could use, public filings that warned other victims, and a courtroom moment where an arrogant man who joked about sipping champagne with my money had to listen to a jury pronounce him guilty. This wasn't just about me. After the conviction, The prosecutor's office used my case as a template. They rolled out a campaign, Romance Scams Know the Signs. They used some of our screenshots, with my permission, in seminars at Bellevue Community Center. They sent alerts to local banks. They pushed for better cross-jurisdictional cooperation on digital fraud. The number $847 million stopped being an abstract statistic in my head and became a call to action. There were quiet victories too. Friends who had been skeptical apologized in small, honest ways. Tara stopped calling me gullible and started saying things like, "I should have seen it too. We all should." I started dating again, slowly, checking in with myself whenever a message warmed my chest. I'm more skeptical now, sure, but I'm not a cynic. I'm just careful. And then there were the online threads. People asked for proof, and I posted redacted screenshots. I wrote a list of the top red flags. Reverse image search every photo. Insist on unscheduled video calls. Never wire money to someone you haven't met in person. Check for IP leaks and keep receipts. The comments poured in. Some thanked me. Some accused me. Some told stories that made me realize this was far bigger than my heartbreak. So what's the life lesson here? Trust has to be earned. When a world of filters and face swaps, it's safer to assume skepticism first and romance second. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you informed. Tell me, have you ever been catfished or known someone who was? Would you have pushed for criminal charges or walked away? Was I right to drag this into court? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm honestly curious. Some people think I went too far. What do you think? One last thing. If you ever get a message from someone who checks all the boxes, Armani suits, Tesla photos, Aspen cabins, dramatic emergencies, reverse image search is your friend. Ask for a live video without filters. Insist on real-time verification. Protect your heart and your bank account. If you want to see the documents or the screenshots, they are public record now. You can look them up under State v. Harris, King County. I have the screenshots if you don't believe me. And if you thought this was intense, subscribe and hit that bell. I have dozens more like this one about justice, deception, and the way modern scams hide in plain sight. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories of justice served, subscribe and hit that bell. I've got dozens more like this one.